Hello. Well, first off, thanks all of you for coming to this side session. This is as you know, it's going to be recorded, and so this will be part of the record that people can refer to as we go into the future. We look back historically as maybe this will be the launching pad for something that will really change the IPPC into the future. I've been working with both Nico and Peter and the other members of the Phyto steering group for about 2 years now, roughly since CPM 8 when it sort of got launched. And when it first started, it was following up on earlier work that had been done by another steering committee. And we've really progressed quite a lot from when we first started discussing this to where we are today. There's been a lot of hard work done, not just by Peter and Nico, but also the other members of the panel, such as Josiah from Kenya and Christian from the US, Peter Namans from Australia, Walter Alessandrini from Argentina, and Mayu Chen from the People's Republic of China. There's been a lot of work put into preparing this project that we hope will be approved next week. But beyond that, I think there are still some questions remaining, and we want to make sure that you get a good, clear presentation tonight about what this is, that you get a chance to ask a few questions from really not the exact technical experts, but certainly the experts in formulating what we want to do in the future with this. So I'd like to hand it over to Peter now, and I'd like to again thank all of you for being here, and I look forward to a good discussion and a good session this evening. So Peter, if you'd like to come on up.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, great to have so many people here this evening. The purpose of the session is really to prepare us for the discussion on the paper, the ePhyto update, that I think will be discussed tomorrow or Wednesday. Yeah. So it's a chance to give you a little bit more information and make sure that we can all go into those discussions having a common understanding. Yeah. Because some of you here will be very familiar with what we're talking about with ePhyto. Some of you, it might be the first time you've been to any discussion about it. Okay, so we want to get everybody on the same page. Also, can I reiterate, Nico and I, we're not the technical experts, okay? So if you do have very technical questions about the SSL security protocols or whatever, write them down, give them to us, and we're happy to give them to the technical experts. But we've basically been working on the general approach, the philosophy, how we can make this work at a semi-technical level, okay? So we'll just tell you. If we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know, and we'll find out an answer for you. Does that sound fair? Yeah? Okay. Right. So we've got a few slides that we'll run through. The first slides are going to be just introductory. If this is new to you, yeah, it'll help you get up to speed. If it's old news to you, then you can go to sleep and we'll wake you up later on, okay? So this is what we'll try to cover, just bring you up to speed on the decisions from last year, what we've been doing, definitions, why harmonization is important. We'll get into a little bit of detail on the hub concept, yeah, how we expect it to work, and then start looking forward to the decision we're going to make this week and what will happen after that. Okay? So I hope you can read that. Is it too small at the back? Yeah, no, I can't zoom in on it. Maybe you can find a seat at there's a seat here and there's a seat here. Yeah? Okay. There's somebody sitting there, but I can't see them. Okay. All right. So last year, these were the decisions, the two main decisions taken by the CPN to encourage the steering group to urgently progress the work and to report back. Okay, and we've been operating under the oversight of the Bureau. Yeah, so I've been the Bureau member, watching over this work and participating. Somebody else will take over from me. So definitions. We talked about this last year, but for those that weren't there, when we talk about an e-Phyto certificate or an electronic phytosanitary certificate, it's not a copy, it's not an electronic copy of a printed certificate, okay? It's a secure XML data set that is transmitted between the two MPPOs, okay? It's the equivalent of a paper certificate. But it's only the equivalent of a paper certificate when the MPPOs accept that they are willing to receive electronic certificates. Okay? We expect when you start using electronic, there will be a period when you will use both electronic certificates and paper certificates, yeah? Until you get confident that the electronic system is working, and then you might agree with your trading partner that you will stop using paper and just use electronic. Okay? Harmonisation. So, we've adopted standards in the past in this area that have helped us to achieve harmonisation or move towards harmonisation. When we look across the other standard-setting bodies, we are much better placed. When you think about Codex and OIE, we're much better placed than they are with the level of harmonisation we've already achieved just through the paper certificates. Yeah? But we want to carry on and make progress. Okay? And there are some real benefits for us if we can continue to achieve harmonisation. Simplifying and reducing the cost of trade, making it easier for the importing MPPO to assess risk through electronically looking at the information coming through on the certificates and targeting your inspections and the like to those risks. Yeah? So there'll be benefits if we can continue down this track. And interestingly, Codex have just started a discussion about electronic certification themselves, and they want to come and talk to us and learn a bit from us. Okay? So, efficient electronic transmission is what we're talking about to speed up information exchange, reduce cost, minimise the opportunity for fraud. We all know there's plenty of fraudulent paper certificates out there that we have to be alert to, so we want to reduce that opportunity. And there is opportunity to align with or at least integrate with single window or other customs systems that are being developed in some countries. Okay. So remember, this is like one of the diagrams we put up last year in the CPM meeting. In a point-to-point situation, you have many countries trading among themselves, but each country, each of those brown lines represents an agreement that has to be reached on how we will transmit the electronic certificate information. Yeah? And so if I'm country A, I'm trading with 4 other trading partners, and I have to get an agreement with them about the exact protocols I'm going to use and how to do the electronic certification. Yeah? If we go to point, we have one standardized system, and I just need to make sure that my transmission protocol can hook into the hub, and then the hub will redirect it to the other trading partners I have that have accepted that I will send them electronic certificates. Okay? So you still need to have agreement from your trading partner that they will accept electronic certificates. Okay? And your trading partner will need to be linked into the hub. Right? Now there is the possibility that you could work a combination. Yeah? So there will be a situation, I'm sure, where I'll take New Zealand for an example. We might be trading with country A, yeah, through the hub. Country X, they may not be connected to the hub, and so I have to do point-to-point with them, yeah? And there may be another country Z that don't accept electronic certificates at all, so I might still have to use paper with them until they switch across, okay? So it might be quite complex until we get a lot of countries moving towards this. So that's hard to read, eh? All right, so this is still a bit of background. So a feasibility study was presented at CPM 9, yeah? And one of the conclusions of the study was that transmission via the hub would strengthen harmonisation and reduce complexity and cost for countries. Okay? We need to note that use of the hub is voluntary. No one will be forced to use it. Some countries will choose to use it right from the outset. Other countries might prefer point-to-point. Yeah? Some countries will be ready to use the hub straight away. Others might decide they are going to be ready in 5 years or 10 years. Yeah? Each MPPO that wants to use the hub will have to register with the hub. Okay? You'll have to have a unique identifier assigned to you for security purposes, so that when you send information to the hub knows that it's coming from an authorised MPPO, not from some random organisation. As I've said, paper certificates will continue to be used until countries bilaterally agree that they will accept only electronic. Security and confidentiality is paramount. We heard that from many contracting parties last year, questions about security and confidentiality. So in the design that the team have come up with, the proposal is that e-photos will be encrypted for transmission and not be opened by the hub at all. Okay? So the hub, the hub will not look at the contents of the certificate. The hub will not validate the contents. All the hub will do is they'll see the certificate you send. It will have an address on the outside of it saying this certificate goes to this MPPO. Yeah? That's all it looks at. So that helps with the confidentiality and security. And the costs of maintaining the hub, we propose, should be carried by those who are using the hub. Yeah? So if you're not using the hub, it shouldn't be costing you anything. All right? The more people that use the hub, the lower the costs will be for those that are using it. This is an interesting diagram. One of the members of the team produced this diagram. If you start at the top left, and I see a lot of people taking photos. That's fine. That's fine of the slides. I mean, not of me. It's fine. The slides will go up onto the website, onto the IPP. Okay, so you'll be able to access them from there. Okay, but if we just step through, and this is trying to help people understand the concept in a simple way. So if you think about a letter being sent, yeah, and the letter represents the certificate. So in step 1, you prepare the letter, prepare the certificate. Step 2, you sign it so that people know that it's authentic. So the certificate could have a signature, a security mechanism, so you know it's valid. And then the message gets encrypted, so that even if somebody finds your letter, they can't read it unless they are the person who is intended to receive it. Okay? Now those two, step 2 and 3, the signing and the encryption, the team are still having some discussion on how to achieve that, the best way to achieve that. Okay? We then have what we call an authentication step. So this is where you might post your before you post your letter, you have to get it authenticated, so that when you send it to the hub, they know that it's coming from a authorised MPPO, someone who's registered with the hub. You then put your letter into an envelope, and when you seal the envelope, no one can read the inside of the letter, right? All they can see is who it's addressed to. So that will be your certificate going to the hub. The hub can't see what's in the certificate, it only sees where it's supposed to go. Then it gets securely transmitted, so we talked about encryption. And the hub would check where it's come from and put it into a temporary storage. Yeah? The message would only be kept in the hub until the MPPO receiving it has picked it up. Yeah? So it's not stored there forever, it's just kept there long enough for the MPPO to pick it up. So for some situations that might be less than 1 second. Yeah? For other situations it might be longer. And it depends whether the receiving MPPO is pulling messages down or having messages pushed to it. Okay? The message is retrieved. There's an authentication step between the hub and the MPPO receiving it to say, is this coming from the hub or is it coming from a fraudulent person pretending to be the hub? Yeah? So all the way through we're trying to keep it secure. Then we can open the envelope, yeah, and obtain the message. So there's lots of steps in here, and you know most of those steps are all about security and confidentiality, because we heard last year so many concerns. Yeah. Now I'm not sure why there are lots of concerns, because with the paper certificate, what do we do with that? We give it to the exporter, and he waves it around everywhere, and he gives it to the bank and sends it wherever he wants to. But anyway, you know, we want security, so we've been listening, and that's what we're providing. Okay? So, more on security. The hub would be located in the cloud, yeah? So it's would be sitting on multiple servers in different locations around the world, yeah? I've mentioned that the messages are only kept in the hub temporarily, lots of authentication. We would use some standard security certificates, SSL certificates they're called. I don't understand a lot about them, but they're very common and low cost, but they provide the security level that we think we would need. Okay. Now because all the hub sees is the envelope that you send, yeah, the message in the envelope could be an e-Phyto, or it could be a message saying from the importing country, it could say, yep, we accept your e-Phyto. It could be a message saying we reject your consignment. It could be a message saying we've cleared your consignment. Yeah? So there can be anything inside the envelope as long as we agree on harmonised message protocols. Okay? So that's quite powerful. And we can make those changes without having to change the structure of the hub. So it's quite low cost as well. Okay? So, do we really need a hub? Lots of people ask, do we really need a hub? Because if we can do point-to-point, and we've got ISPM 12, which provides the common format for messages and for the contents, why do we need a hub? Yeah? So the team has been thinking hard about that. And, you know, one of the things the hub provides is it's easier for new countries to participate in ePhyto, and we'll explain that a bit more later. It does, if there are new countries that don't currently have an electronic system, it should provide a lower cost entry for them, yeah, because they don't have to set up right from scratch. The hub is there, they just have to have one protocol to communicate, and then they can send stuff to the rest of the world. There's no need to bilaterally negotiate the transmission protocol with each country. Okay, you can just align your system with the hub. Everyone's going to be playing by one set of rules. Yeah? You don't have a big country like New Zealand saying, okay, if you want to trade with us, you've got to do it our way. Yeah? There's just one set of rules, and if you're going through the hub, it's the same for everybody. So we do think that the hub provides the best opportunity for harmonisation ongoing. Yeah? If we're all going through there, one set of rules, it's not going to change. So we think we'll be able to maintain harmonisation a lot more easily. Okay, arguments against the hub. So as we go out talking to people, there's some arguments against it, or some reasons that it might be difficult. So one thing people say is, we've already got our own national system, and we can transmit e-photos, yeah? And that's okay, yeah? Some countries have got that, and they might choose to keep using their system for point-to-point, but if you've got your own national system, you can also use it for the hub if you wish. Yeah? So having your own system already shouldn't stop you from using the hub. Yeah? Now, anybody who's got their own system already, they might have to make a change to it. They might have to make a small change, just like they would if they were starting to send photos to a new trading partner. Yeah? But once you've done it once for the hub, you shouldn't have to do it again. Okay, okay, so we have to spend money to adapt our system to the hub. That's what I was just saying. Yeah, you only have to do it once because the hub only has one protocol. Yeah. Point-to-point transmission costs nothing, but the hub will cost money to maintain it and use it. So that's the last part is true. It will cost money to maintain the hub. Yeah. So there will be a charge for using it. But when people say point-to-point transmission costs nothing, I'm not sure that that's true. Yeah. Because you know, sometimes when we use our internal IT people to build a system and keep it up to date, because the costs are internal, we don't count the dollars, yeah? But it actually costs quite a bit of money, and that's why New Zealand's been very interested in this, because we can't afford to change our system every time we get a new trading partner. It costs money, real money, even though it's internal. Okay? So, you know, we think that, and you know, there are a number of case studies where we think once you align to the hub, as long as your other trading partners are generally starting to align to the hub, overall it should be cheaper. Okay. How can we trust the security of the hub? Well, I hope the stuff I've described already shows you we're trying to design a system that is much more secure than the current paper system. The second to last one, we don't have all the answers yet, and that's true. If you've read the paper, the update paper, the CPM paper, there are some things we haven't been able to answer yet, and that's things like you know, who will be running this system, and exactly what the costs will be, yeah, and how should it be paid for. Some of those questions we can't answer until we go out, until we get permission from CPM to go out and put a tender and select a provider and do some negotiations on the arrangements. Yeah? So some of the answers people want now, we can't give you until we can take the next step. And my country doesn't have the ability to create or transmit photos. So lots of countries don't have the capability to do that yet. So is that a good reason to not build the hub? Well, it's a reason why you can't use it at the moment, but maybe it's still good to have the hub there because one day you might be ready. Yeah. Now, part of the proposal, actually, I'll get to it later. Part of the proposal is going to help countries that don't currently have their own system to start using the hub sooner than they would otherwise be able to. So. There's been quite a lot. I think am I talking quite fast, yeah? Okay, we'll slow down a little bit now. So what have we done since last year? we've had a technical working group develop the specification for the hub that an IT developer will need in order to build it. Yeah, so we can now, we've got a document that we can give to an IT developer, and they will know what to build. Yeah, there's always some room for defining the smaller details, but it's enough for them to give us a reasonable cost estimate and to know what we're looking for. Okay, so we've done that. We've received some costings for the hub. One of the things we have yet to do is to develop a high level or a detailed specification for a generic national system that countries that don't already have a national system could use. Yeah? We've got the high level, very high level specification, but we still need to do more work on that. We've developed a proposal for STDF funding for $1.2 million. We'll come to that. We've had some discussions with a UN organisation that provides information technology services that we think could be quite a good opportunity for us. On the website, you'll be able to find in the Phyto area a bunch of fact sheets and frequently asked questions. And Craig, do you think there's a chance we might be able to have some of those outside the plenary room in the next couple of days? Yeah? Or the FAQs, yeah? So people can get to have a look at those. And there's been a lot of capacity development activity, yeah? Much of it led by the regions, which has been very good. So, I think we've talked about that enough, yeah? So, we've got the specification, we've sent it to some vendors to get some costings. So what did they tell us? So we've had responses from, well, in the feasibility study last year, we had some estimates of what it would cost to build the hub. The estimate was about $350,000, yeah? We've had a response from the FAO. They said if they were going to build the hub, it would cost about 400, was it 400,000? Yeah, for FAO. We had a response from the UNICC. They said about 250. Yeah, so we know we're in about the right ballpark. Yeah, it's between $200,000 and $400,000, we think. And you know, with these things, you know how it is. You don't know until you sit down and you're face-to-face negotiating. Yeah, okay. For maintaining the hub, you know, the ongoing cost of maintenance, again, we've had a range of costs. So some from as low as $50,000 per annum up to $200,000 per annum. That's a very wide range, yeah? And it's clear that some of the proposals are including full service and others are including just very basic. So again, these are the sorts of things we can't nail down completely until we're able to sit down with vendors with your permission to proceed. Yeah. One of the things about the costing is how we're going to pay for it. Yeah. So the team has been looking at different options. So we've looked at options like it could be like your prepaid mobile phone, where you pay in advance, and then every time you send a certificate, it could get deducted off your account. Yeah? Or you might get sent an invoice every month for how much you used. Or you might just have an annual charge. Yeah? An annual charge if you're using the hub, here's how much we're going to cost or charge you based on last year's use, something like that. One of the proposals is that there should be no charge if you're just a very small user. So if you're just starting out, you know, maybe it's not worth charging. Your work in government, yeah, you don't want to send an invoice out for $5 if it costs you $100 to collect it, right? Yeah. So there's still some options that we need to work through. So the generic generic system for countries that don't already have the ability to create electronic certificates. Yeah? So this is the functionality that the generic system would have. So you'd be able to enter phytosanitary certificate data. You'd be able to produce certificates, electronic or paper. You'd be able to send them to the hub or to another country point to point. You could store the certificates that you've sent and received. You can receive them and decrypt them so you can read them. Yeah? And you could view them, print them, those sorts of basic functions. Okay? So we're proposing that this be developed. There are already some options out there. So we'd look at what's already available, see if there's still a gap. If there's a gap, we could develop something from scratch or modify something that's already there. Yeah? And we would hope that would be web-based and that we could make it available to any country. That's the hope. Yeah? The STDF proposal, so this is hopefully where the money comes from. Okay? So the proposal that we've put together is $1.2 million of funding, $1 million coming from STDF, $200,000 coming from either IPPC or contracting parties that participate in the pilot. Yeah, and it could be in kind, so it doesn't have to be cash. Yeah? So the proposal covers three things: developing the hub, developing the generic system that MPPOs could use if they don't have their own system, and then piloting it with, we've got X countries, we don't know how many, but we would want to pilot it for a few months with some developing countries, with some developed countries, people that use a lot, send a lot of certificates, some people that use a few, just to test the range. Yeah. So that's what's included in the STDF proposal, and they'll be making final decisions on that in April 2015. We really appreciate the countries that have written letters of support to the STDF. That's tremendously helpful, and our decision this week will be important too, to give the STDF a feel for how much support this has around the world. Of course, if CPM decides you don't want to proceed, then I don't know what happens to this proposal. Probably have to yank it off the table. Yeah? Tell them to spend their money somewhere else. Okay. UNICC. So this is the agency that's been quite helpful to us. This is a UN agency that provides information technology services to many, many UN bodies. Yeah? They operate right around the world. They operate like a commercial service provider, except they don't make a profit. They're just recovering their costs. Okay? The big advantage we see is that as a UN body, they retain all the rights and privileges and immunities that UN organisations have. Yeah? So at the CPM last year, somebody said, what if one of the country's security agencies goes to the hub provider and says, give us the information? Like people complain that Google or Apple have to provide information to security agencies. Yeah. So that couldn't happen with the UN body, with the ICC. Yeah. They have protections from that. So we think there's some advantages there, but we still have to look at all the pros and cons. How much is it going to cost to go with them versus somebody else? But there's an opportunity there. Okay. And they can provide a full service. Yeah, they can provide a very narrow service if that's all we want, or they can provide a full service. They can manage the development process. They can host it. They can manage the application if we want. Capacity development. So this is just a list of some of the capacity development stuff that's been done over the last year. So there's been regional workshops where the Phyto concept's been discussed. There's been an APPC workshop that was very well attended. Similar workshop with NAPO. We're thinking we should be having further regional workshops in 2015 and 2016, so we're interested if regions want to set those up. There are members of the steering committee who may be able to attend and assist with those workshops. The Republic of Korea, as you heard this morning in the ministerial welcome address, they have committed to having a global ePhyto symposium, so that's going to be a great opportunity to develop capability among countries to prepare for this. And of course the STDF proposal, that's got capacity development items in it, and the fact sheets that are on the website already, but we'll try and make some available outside the plenary room. So, what do we need to decide? So the Commission tomorrow or Wednesday will be asked to decide whether they support the STDF proposal. Yeah? Should we go ahead with this? Do they support the Secretariat implementing the STDF project if it gets approved? Specifically, developing the hub, developing the national system, and piloting it. Yeah? It's a pretty straightforward, it's a simple decision, but it's got potentially big implications. Yeah? Okay. So we thought there might be some questions that MPPOs might have. Things like if we did build this generic national system, yeah, would your country want to use it? If you don't already have one, would you want to use it? Yeah? Is that the main thing that's stopping you from doing ePhyto right now, having your own national system, or are there other things stopping you? Yeah? So there's a question about what's the next thing your MPPO needs to do to be able to engage in electronic transmission. Yeah? And maybe that's sort of answered by the next question. Does your MPPO have domestic legislation or regulations that would present a barrier? You know, some countries, their legislation says that they need to have wet signatures, or they have to have paper certificates when they're sending their exports, or they can only receive paper certificates. Those sorts of things could be a barrier for your country to participate. You might have to change your legislation. Yeah? If you started to participate in electronic exchange, how would you cover the cost? Yeah? So if there was a charge for using it, how would you cover the cost? Do you have a system for recovering the cost from your exporters or importers, or do you have government funding for all of these costs? Do you recover it from industry? Do you have the legal mechanisms to recover the costs? All those sorts of questions. When we had the APPP workshop, those are the things that we talked about. Yeah? How to get ready for this. So each of you will have to think about those things. Okay. So we're happy to take questions. I hope that's been helpful. Yeah, I hope you sort of know where we're at. I hope it's helped to clarify a few things for you. As we said, we don't have all the answers yet, but we think we've got enough to make a decision. Yeah. We're happy to take questions. If there are specific questions just for your country, you might want to talk to us afterwards. If they're very technical and we don't know, we'll tell you. So, and Nico's here and Craig's here. They're the ones who've really got all the answers. Okay. Yes.
I would like to thank you very much for the good presentation. I have 2 questions. It has not come out clear to me on how much it is costing to move away from the current paperwork of Phyto to Phyto. It has, from your presentation, it has not come out clear to me.
Right.
The other second question is, could you give an example? How many countries have currently moved from the old use of the paperwork to Phyto? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, good questions. The answer to the first one, what's the cost of moving from paper to electronic? Yeah, and the answer is it depends, right? I can talk about New Zealand. Yeah, so for New Zealand, and if you go on the IPP into the ePhyto page, you will find the feasibility study that we looked at last year. Okay, in there are case studies. So there's a New Zealand case study, Netherlands case study, and there's some information from the USA. Okay, in New Zealand, we estimate that just a simple thing like having security paper, yeah, like paper that can't be fraudulently used, that costs us about 50 cents a sheet. Yeah, if you've got security paper that's individually numbered, it's about 50 cents a sheet. Yeah, and then you think about storing your certificates. Yeah, all the work in producing them by hand or in your system, printing them. Now the costs quickly add up. Yeah. Now for each country it will be different. For the electronic, once you have the system set up, you don't have the cost of security paper. You don't have the cost of storing and filing. Yeah. But this is the sort of thing that each country will have to evaluate for itself. Now, for some countries, it will be easier to evaluate it once we have something you can look at and you know the actual cost of. Yeah. In terms of how many countries are currently only transmitting electronically, there are very few. Yeah. Nico, do you have any details there? No? Yeah. So most countries that have the capability to transmit electronically are still just piloting, and they're still using paper certificates at the same time. Yeah? One example I know about is New Zealand and Australia. So when New Zealand sends Phyto certificates to Australia, we no longer use paper certificates. Yeah? So, but that's one example. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Could you please explain what you mentioned during your presentation, that even when we have the hub, there will still be a bilateral agreement needed to use the hub and to get rid of paper certificates?
Yeah.
As I understand, my question is because, as I understand, when you're an importing country and you're ready to accept electronic certificates, you actually receive them from the hub. And you don't care that much who puts them into the hub. Whoever, doesn't matter, because the electronic system is exactly the same for everyone. Mm. So, and that still is in line with ISPM 12, which only says can be used if accepted by the importing country. So the acceptance is unilateral rather than bilateral. So once you accept it, what you need to do, I would understand, I would assume, is to send a message to the IPPC Secretariat, I accept them. And it gets published on the IPP, and then anyone can send his electronic certificates through the hub to you. Why would that require a bilateral agreement? Thank you.
Okay. I think, were you trying to answer, Ralph, or asking a question? I'll answer the question first, eh? I'll try. So we have what you've described would be perhaps ideal. Yeah, we've been trying all the way through this to be very cautious. Yeah, and so we've said, well, countries may want to accept the electronic certificates only when they have confidence that the content of the certificates will be valid. Yeah? So the hub allows the transmission to occur. Yeah? But I may have more confidence in country A that their actual certificate information will be compliant with ISPM 12. Yeah? I might have more confidence with country A than I have with country B. Yeah? And so I might want the opportunity to say, well, country B, you have to keep providing us paper certificates until your compliance is 98% or 95 or whatever. Okay. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Yeah, Nico?
Thank you. I would just like to add from a more practical point of view, even as importing country, you have to know when you're in the harbor with a consignment whether to expect a paper or an electronic certificate. So ideally you're right, but in practice it's good to know for your operation what to expect. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? There was one over here. Yeah.
Thank you for your informative presentation. I have a question. Can you give us an estimation?
Sorry, I think it's being recorded, so they want the microphone.
Thank you for your informative presentation. Can you give us an estimation that how long does it take to establish such a system for Phyto? And as I understood, there is no country which use the specifically Phyto system right now. I mean that they may use Phyto as well as paper phytosanitary certification.
Yeah. Okay. So for the last question, just to reiterate, we're not aware of many examples where countries have felt comfortable yet to say, okay, you can drop the paper. Yeah, there's one that I talked about. Netherlands don't have one yet, eh?
No, the Netherlands doesn't have one in the plant health field, but we do have one in dairy products. So, but basically for us that's the same system. So it's very comparable. But that mainly depends on, as Peter said, having the confidence to leave away the paper.
Yeah.
To do it with only the electronic certificate, and that's a process where there has to be confidence between the parties. And I think we are building the confidence by setting up such systems. Thank you.
Yeah, and remember it's only been a year since we adopted ISPM 12 to get harmonization for the messages, yeah? So I think a lot of countries are still adapting to that, yeah? And your question about how long does it take to set it up? Can I say it depends again? So how long it will take to build the hub, the estimate in the STDF proposal is about 9 months, is it? Yeah, about 9 months to build the hub. Probably a little longer, maybe 12 to 18 months to build the generic national system. Yeah, so that's how long we expect it'll take to get those things in place. But how long it will take for each country to be ready to use it depends on your situation with your legislation and infrastructure, those sorts of things. Yeah? Is that what you were asking? Sort of, yeah? We can talk more later if you wish. Ralph had a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm just connecting to a question which was asked earlier, what does it cost to establish such a system? I think we should ask a different question, actually. What do we actually save by establishing such a system? How much work do we actually save ourselves in MPPOs, in this, issuing phytosanitary certificate, in issuing replacement certificates or re-export certificates? And the question is, how much does the industry save in having much easier access to certificates? Doesn't have to send people to pick up, for instance, certain certificates, replacement certificates, and so on, and what benefit it makes to the economy of a country regarding export activities. So I think we should not just focus a little bit on the relatively little cost of establishing a new system, but actually focus on the benefits we have as an economy on having such an electronic system. That is, I think, where we should focus, and maybe that would be one point to actually to highlight much more in the future these very beneficial economic consequences we have through an electronic certification system.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. I guess the other thing that was highlighted to me at the APPC workshop is there are many countries now that are developing their own national system, and each of those systems is a little bit different from the other one. Yeah, so we're very quickly going to see this situation if we don't do something now. Yeah. There's another question in the middle. Yeah.
Very much. Still on the cost. In your presentation, I think 3 times you mentioned low cost. What might be low cost to you might not be low cost to developing countries. So is it possible that you can put a figure of what low cost is? Because it was just in sentence form. But what is a figure for that same low cost? Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Look, that's what everybody wants to know, eh? And you know, we can't answer exactly what the cost will be until we have a system in place. It's a chicken and egg, right? What we believe from all the work that we've done is that it will be lower cost than a paper-based system. Yeah, if you factor all the costs from a paper-based system, once this is established, we're confident it will be lower cost than that. Yeah, but you know, we can't give you a figure until we have the system. That's where we have to take a bit of a leap and know that it's the right thing to do and trust that we can get it right. Craig?
Yeah, it's important to remember that this is something that we're looking at that's not going to be instantaneous in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to be mandatory for countries to immediately start using. The focus and the objective from doing this in a global approach is that while there are many developed countries that certainly can afford or easily handle the cost, there are many developing countries that can't. So our objective really when we develop this system is to make it so that it's available to all, and those countries that don't have the capability or the wherewithal to proceed with this, we want to facilitate that. That's why we go after projects. That's why we hope to engage other organizations in developing this, because we're very much aware that for some countries it's going to be very easy to do. For some countries, they may have to change national legislation in order to accept electronic phytosanitary certificates. So this is part of an IPPC approach, not to do something immediately, but to look down the road 10, 20, 25 years to really establish something. The big concern that we have is if we don't do it now, somebody else is going to do it for us. It might be the customs agencies of our countries. They're moving very aggressively to do things on certification. We need to work with them, of course, and we need to engage with them. But if we don't start now, we're going to be left behind. But it doesn't mean that it happens next week, next year for everyone. But in the end, the goal is that everyone, should they choose, will be able to use it.
My question is a little bit linked with what was just said, I think, by Craig. I wanted to ask whether you have considered relationship with other systems that are there, compatibility or interoperability. That's one element of the question. And the other one will be also if you have considered the same, because at the national level, those who have some systems in place and are working towards a single window. Is this something that you have considered also, to have some compatibility, operativity with these systems that are moving towards single window, to make sure that your system will be able to consider those systems also together?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond, Nico, or Craig?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a good point. And yes, we've met with the World Customs Organization to talk about what we're doing. We haven't formalized anything yet. We've met with the people who are developing ASI-SUR and ASI-CUDA, which Nico can talk more about. Those folks, we're definitely aware of working with these other groups, and we definitely intend to work with them because, as I said, we're aware that this is a movement that everybody's going to electronic certification regardless of the type of certificate. As we've heard, Codex is interested in this as well. So it's something that we're aware of, but why not take the initiative for at least phytosanitary certificates to start the ball rolling? But at the same time, we're reaching out and conversing on a regular basis. In fact, one of the things that I hope to have next year perhaps would be a side session or a presentation from the WCO, World Customs Organization, on their activities to build up that relationship. But yeah, we're definitely engaged, and Nico can tell you a little bit more about some presentations we've had from other UN organizations.
Yeah, and just to add to this, very important for a single window is also harmonization of data entry. And that's one of the aspects we are working on, and we certainly like to discuss with customs, like having the HS code also in the certificate. And there are also developments by UNCTAD. They have developed a system, it was mentioned by Greg already. They have a custom system called ASI-CUDA, and linked to that they have built a module called ASI-SER, which is purely for Phyto, for production of electronic phytosanitary certificates according to ISPM 12. And then, of course, then it can link up, for instance, with the hub. So there are all kinds of initiatives to work together with other organizations, including customs, to get it aligned and to be compatible for the single window initiatives. Thank you.
Thanks, Nico. Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the hub won't be interacting with other systems itself because it's not reading the messages. Yeah. For New Zealand, for example, we are designing our system so that the messages will come from the hub into our national ePhyto system and then have a link across to our single window system. So it will share the data. Once it gets into New Zealand, we will share the data. Okay, now we're out of time. Is there one really important question for a last question we should take? I'm going to go with somebody who had their hand up earlier. Yeah? Yeah?
I just wish to make educate guests based on the data you provide. Assuming we forget about the setup cost of the hub, we pay for the running costs. Now, the running cost just now is about $200,000, is it?
Well, the estimates
Roughly.
have been between 50 and 200,000, so
50
very wide
to,
estimates.
oh, let's make it 200,000. Now, let's assume a small place like Hong Kong, we issue 10,000 certificates a year. Now, let's assume there's only 20 countries who are willing to participate, which amongst we have 180 countries. So just assume 20 countries. Let each country we issue 10,000 certificates. We share the cost. Then we pay less than $1 per certificate. Is it correct? If we have more, then we may just pay
like that.
for. If we double that, we will just pay 50 cents per certificate.
Yeah.
So we operate on that base, roughly speaking.
It's that kind of range, yeah. But
So in theory,
Yeah.
if it is set up, most likely, then for every certificate, we have to pay less than $1
yeah.
for the service.
That most likely, yeah. And hopefully we'll have more than, as Craig said, this is a long game, yeah?
And
The people who enter early, it might cost a bit more because there's fewer. But as we get more and more people coming in, the cost will be spread.
And also back to the colleague just now, talking about the single window, because we are also working on that back home. Just want to share the experiences that we prepare to receive Phyto from if the hub is built. And then the integration into the single window will be on our own side. So we receive a simple message to Hong Kong, then we build the system into our single window.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've registered with the New Zealand single window.
Okay.
It's terribly clumsy. It took me half an hour just to identify myself and to confirm I'm who I am, and before I can use it.
We're very cautious.
Yeah, but I think that will be very useful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope that's been helpful. Hope it gives you something to think about. Nico and I are here all week, so just come and see us. And Craig.